Today we're going to work on little accessory pieces, specifically these covered paper clips that have the little dangle pieces to them. And I say accessory pieces because these are going to be great to add to our journals, our little albums and books, any kind of ATCs that you want to. You could put these in cards, and they make perfect gifts that can be used as bookmarks. They can go in your planners. There's just so many different opportunities, and adding these dangles just makes them so great. We're decorating them today, of course, as you can tell, for Halloween, but they can be decorated in for any holiday or any type of season. So let's get started making these today. As you can see, I've got a lot of supplies already out, and what I'm focusing on today, I have pulled out my Halloween scraps papers that I have. I have some brand new Halloween papers that I can't wait to get into, but I still have these scraps, and this is one of those crafts that is great to have scraps to do and work on. We're also going to have plenty of paper clips to use that we can cover. I've got everything from the silver, the gold, and then some colors, and mainly the colors that I'm looking at for Halloween that we might use, the purples. This is another shade of purple that might work as well. So I have those. In terms of the size, I have found that these larger paper clips that are approximately, they're a little over 1.5, they're about 1 3/4 inches in length. That is the length that to me works really well for this. As you can see, we still have the ends of these clips that are visible, and we cover them in this pretty paper that we have. So we've got our clips, we have our papers. The other things that we're going to need, I have little charms, and I have a lot of my letters. I've got a couple of letters in here that I already had pulled out. This little packet had some other little Halloween charms in it, and some specifically I'd pulled out Boo and some stars. But I also have pulled out my letters that we can pull out some different words if we want to. I've also got some other beads. Of course, I'm going with the black and the orange, the purple, the colors. I've got some other little trinkets that we're going to use for charms and stuff. And I've also pulled out a lot of my Halloween colored ribbon and twine that will be good for this project. So I'm going to make a couple of these clips with you today, and then we can look at making some more over time. I have a lot of projects coming up for Halloween, and so I definitely need these type of accessories to add to those projects. So I love to have a day when I can sit down and make plenty of these. So let's get started. So talking about the papers that we're going to use for today's projects, I really wanted this today, since we're playing with scraps, we're using scraps. I wanted it to be a day that maybe didn't use a whole bunch of measurements. The only measurement I'm really going to be specific about that I used is I have my paper that is about 1 1/4 inch in length, and that's going to be a good size to wrap around here to give that space at the top and the bottom. So that's assuming you're using the same type, same size of paper clip that I'm using. So then what I'm going to do is we're going to use some wrapping. So this was the sheet that I actually used with this one. And I want to pick out some more paper that we can use. So some considerations to think about, because we're working with this smaller paper clip, it's probably going to be better to use some papers that have smaller images on them, because if it's too big of an image, almost like this paper, I love the kitty cat and stuff, but you're not going to fit that cat on the paper clip, right? So this will be what used for some other projects. 6x6 papers are really good for this. This was a sheet of a 6x6, and so this is going to be an option here. Those stripes are going to look great, so I might go with that. But I think what caught my eye, this little candy corn paper, And I'm wondering how much do we have here? That is almost 1/4 of an inch right there, isn't it? Perfect. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm not even going to have to do any measurement yet. I'm going to cut this little strip off right here. And look, this had some words on the back. I don't think that's going to be great to use, but let me show you how I've come up with how I'm going to wrap this around my paper clips. So with this, do we want to use a gold versus the silver? I think I am. Let's use one of the gold. This was a pack that I got. They're the jumbo clips from Staples. And so let's open this up and grab a clip out of here. And there's a couple of things. Oh, that one's a little bent up, but I think the great thing about paper clips, when it's bent, we'll just bend it right back. So let me show you here with the design of the one that I already have built. From this front view, everything looks covered up. But when we turn it over to the back side, we're going to see that there is our clip. And we have to keep that out visible so that the paper clip is still usable, right? So we have to keep that portion open. Now, things to consider: once we wrap the paper, it's going to be easy if you're going to add a little ribbon up to the top like I have to do that, but you have to also think about your charms down here. Once you put your paper on, well, you know, normally how, like when we have paper clips, it's easy to like take a charm or whatever, and you could go from one of the open pieces of the clip and just string it down, right? And you can do that and do some wrapping, and that might be how we want to start out with. Another option is to wait and put rings on all your charms, which I have done that on this, and then put this in place. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to see how it works putting our beads on, and then we'll do the wrapping. So for this one, I think I do want to use the orange bead here. I've also got a gold bead that I think looks pretty. And then let's look for a really neat charm. I've got some pumpkin charms in here that are different colors, but those I think have a different kind of clip, and I want to save for maybe another project. But I have some other charms here. I just found out, I'm not, and I can't remember where I got these. My silver ones here don't actually have any kind of hook on them. So they're things that I would have to like glue down on something. So I'm going to set those aside as well. So the ghost is a really neat charm. We're going to have to add a ring to these as well. Whoops. Now, another option to do is to go with the candy that would kind of match the vibe of the candy corn. So I think I may do that. So let's add a ring to that charm. And I have those over here. So I've picked out one of these rings. Let me get my pliers here ready to open this ring so we can attach it to our charm here. So I've got that, and in this case I'm just going to go ahead and close this up so that I can just string it onto the actual paper clip. Okay, so we have the orange bead. I like to try to put the charm in the middle. And when I say charm, I mean the, like, in this case, the little piece of candy. And then I've got a gold bead. And let's just drop that on. And so it's going to look something like this. This is what our dangle is going to look like. Okay, and now let's take our piece of paper that we're going to use to wrap. And so the longer or the shorter end of the hoop of the paper clip is what is going to need to be visible from the back. We take our paper and we're going to turn it upside down. And this is what I want to weave through the paper clip so that from the back side we see that smaller one poking through still. And then I'm going to kind of get my dimensions here. I'm going to take it and fold it so that it's almost like a halfway fold, and just use those edges of this clip to make our fold. And that's going to wrap around the clip. But I really don't want, and what I'm going to do here now is I want to trim off about enough that would cover both pieces there, or cover that entirely. We don't want to go edge to edge. I want a little bit of an overlap. Now, here though is going to be my front of my clip, and I don't want that fold visible. I'm not going to place anything on top of this like a sticker or die cut, which that is an option to do, but I'm not going to do it with this one. So I really want the fold to be on this back side. So to get that, I'm just going to pull through a little bit, and now let's do the wrap. And we're going to have to go through from this side, do a little bit of maneuvering to get this through the clip so that it comes through there. There we go. And that really holds it in place there, but I want to put some glue on this. But what I'm going to do is pull it up just a little bit. I'm going to take my Tombow glue and I'm going to go inside here. I don't know how easy it's going to be. I want to put a tiny layer on the paper, the edge of both edges. And again, I want to make sure that I'm underneath this lower clip once I get that paper lined up. And then we're just going to squeeze at the place where the paper is connecting. And we can move up and down on the paper as we need to do any pressing on different pieces, but it is going to dry pretty quick. Okay. And if you'll notice how we talked about the design on the paper, you know, the candy corn seemed so visible here. You really only get a few pieces of the candy corn visible, which I think it's cute though with the little stars and the black and white. I think you still get the vibe. This is Halloween. But just be aware of that as you're picking out the paper that you're going to use. Now we need to add a cute little topper. So let's go through the ribbon that I have. And a lot of this ribbon here is a little bit thicker. Ooh, but what about adding some of the little cord trim? That may be cute. Okay, so I think I'm gonna trim off about this much. And I think the way that I want to attach this, let's go with, again, I think I'm gonna use my twine. I have some orange twine here. Let's see if this piece will work. What I was thinking, I've got a lot of little tassel marks there. Let's just loop this piece of cording trim through the top, and we're not going to tie it or anything specific to that, but I'm going to take, and similarly to how we tied off the first one, let's tie a knot as close as we can to this paper clip. And let's double knot this so it really gets it in place. And we want to keep, or I like to keep, my twine a part of all this dangle area, the stuff, the ribbon, but I am going to trim it some. So let's trim that. That may be just a little long. The only thing about this twine is it does unravel, and I didn't really get that. I probably should be using my ribbon scissors. But sometimes I kind of like that ragged look. Got a piece in there. And this is how this paper clip is finished. It's very quick and easy, and you just decorate it as you want. For this next paper clip that I want to do for you, I want to try to use this purple one that I have. And I also want to use some of these little pom-pom balls, and I'm going to show you how you can make those into charms. But first, let's pick out our paper that we're going to use. I was also thinking about maybe using this little ghost. I had made some with a shrinky dink paper and put some of the resin on top of that. And so I think that's going to make a really cute charm and dangle piece. And it's going to be a little bit longer than some of the others. I'm wondering about this design, or do we want to go something more? I'm not sure how much of the design elements we will get with that, but that is really cute. See the difference in the stripes here and the sizing with the 6x6 paper. I think that's going to be the distinguishing factor. I don't know if I have anything else here that has a lot of the purple except for this one, and that's a little bit different shade. Any of these would work, and I will probably end up using a lot of these, making some myself, but I just wanted to show you a couple of different techniques of things to use. Let me trim off a 1 1/4 inch piece from this, and I'll be right back. So I have this piece that's 1 1/4 inch tall, and that's what's going to fit. Now this one I'm going to do, I think, in a little bit different. I think what I'm going to try to do here is let's wrap this first, and then we're going to work on our charms. So I want to wrap with the opposite side showing. Then we can use this. I want to pull it a little bit closer and line it up here, and we'll wrap one side and then wrap the other to get our dimensions. Okay. And then I'm going to slide this off because I already have the dimensions I want to use. Now, for this piece right here that I want to connect, I'm just going to trim. I can tell, I'm going to make as straight of a cut as I can. And that's where I want to line up. I don't want it to be super tight because I've got to think, I want my paper clip to fit inside this. And in fact, I may trim just a sliver off so we're not all the way to the end. Okay, now I'm going to take my glue, and you can see this method I think a little bit better from here. I'm going to do my line of glue on the edge of the paper there. And then also, let's hold this down, on the edge of the paper here that's going to wrap over. So we did it on the edge there and edge there. So we don't have to guess how far over the paper goes in either direction. And just kind of lightly fold it in place, kind of hold it a little bit. But now what I can do is I can take this, here's my front side, and I can just slide this on while I'm pushing out that back piece, and it's going to just slide right on. Now this will be on the underside where it connects, and we still will go back now here and apply a little bit of pressure and hold those pieces together. Now they're in place where we want them. And there is the covered portion of the clip. And it still has the attachment, the usability of what a paper clip is, right? And we're all ready to add some things on top and things on bottom. So I have one of the little charm that I made as a shrinky dink. I have attached a little ring to that. I wanted to show you how I took these little pom-pom balls and I have turned these into charms. I did this with the white one. I'm going to use a silver eye pen or head pen. So here's the pen I have. It's the flat head that I want to use. It's kind of blunt on this other side. But I take my little pom-pom ball and I'm going to try to focus on getting right through the middle so it will hold it pretty much in place. And sometimes I have to play with it to try to get in the middle. And then when we have it in here, I'm going to pull it so that, see, that head pin is kind of hidden now. I pull it, but not all the way. Now we still have this straight edge. And what I'm going to have to do here now is I have my looper, bead looper tool. Now, if you can do this with your pliers, go for it. I have a hard time with it. So I like to use my little looper tool that I will just thread this through all the way to the far edge, and it cuts off that and it gives me a little loop, and so it makes me a little charm that I'm going to use right here. We have this other little piece left out. I like to save these and use these for smaller charms and stuff, so I'm not going to get rid of that. So I think I'm going to use the purple though to add a little bit of color, so I'm going to save this one for another project. And then on the other side, let's use some of the alphabet beads. I have already put Boo on one. What's another idea for, we can do scary, we could do spooky. Let's do spooky. I think that's what I want. So I've labeled my little containers. And so let's see how easy it's going to be able to find. And I have these little black beads that I think would be cute. I know I need the S, and let's see, we can get, I think, our other letters over here in this little container. There's just a P and an O, and I see a K. So we've got S, P, O, there's a K, but I need one more O. S, P, O. Let's hope I can find one. Surely there's another O in the black. If not, I may have to adjust. An O came out in red. I only have, it's the red and green beads that I have. Let me look through this a little bit more. I had to do a little change. I could not find another O in those black letters, and so at least though I have enough to do it in these black and white instead of, you know, with the white being the major color instead of the black. Let's go with that. So we're going to need another one of my little pens, but this time I'm going to use the one that starts off with the little circle on the top. That's just one less thing that I have to do. I'm going to string this on and make sure, yes, it stays. With the previous one over here, I put the two purple beads on either end, but I think I'm just going to do the lettering with this. And so we'll string our B-O-O on here. You want to hold it all the way to the end. And so I try to just kind of hold it in my hand so that I can press on that side. And then I'm going to line this through here until it cannot go any further. Gently press, and I open it, and we have our little charm. There's that, and we've got the little piece left over. That's a really small one. It could maybe get a really small bead on it, so I am going to keep it. Okay, so we have that. Now, the question is, though, how do we get it on this? Now, with the ghost, I can unhook that and loop it on, but I can't do that unless I add a ring to this, which I think I'm going to. I think that might be how I was going to do it. But what I was going to show you is we do have a little bit of a leeway, but not an awful lot. So that's the only thing. You would have to take it all the way off, and then it's hard to get it back on. So when we do it in this method first, you're probably going to have to add any charms with the rings. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to put the ghost in the middle. And so let me just open up. I put a big ring on that. Open that up, and we're going to place that on the paper clip. Let's go ahead and use this. I am not a professional jewelry person. I just do it and make it work. That fits on there. I want to hook up. Let's see, and sometimes I go back and forth on how to do the lettering. Do you start with the B up here? I think I'm going to, because I'm going to put it on the right-hand side, and so it's like we're reading Boo from that direction. I'm going to use a little bit smaller ring than I did for the ghost. So let's attach the Boo to that. And then I'm also going to put, actually, let's put the charm on here, or the paper clip on here first. And then Boo. And then we'll close this up. See if I did it how I wanted to. Yes, there we go. Okay, so we're looking so far like this. Last thing, we're going to add to our little puff ball. That was a bigger charm or bigger ring. So let's unhook this. And first we will attach the paper clip. Then we will put on our little pom-pom ball. I love pom-poms, and I like to find different ways to use them. And there we go. So here is our little clip for the third one that I have for today to share with you. And then let me show you how they all look. Attach them to this piece of paper, and of course different ones show up better different ways based on the colors. Oh, we need little, I got so excited about my charms, I forgot to do the ribbon for the top here. All right, I added a cute little piece of black ribbon that has the little white edging, and we'll put that on. And so here are our 3 different bookmarks that we have. That one's a little bit harder to see with the background. So that's another thing that you should consider as you're thinking about making these. Look how good it shows up now with the orange. We have our pom-poms. I love the little letters. So many cute different options. It's all dependent on what you want to add to it, your ribbons and charms. That's one thing I always like to do, is be on the lookout all throughout the year really for letters, for little charms, for pom-poms, for all kinds of things that you can add throughout the different seasons to your cute little pieces. So I hope you've enjoyed watching me make these little covered paper clips today, and get some of your scraps that you have and your pieces and make some of these so that we can now add them to our cute little other journals and things that we're going to be making this season. Hope you've had a great time and join me for my next project.